All right, we're back. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope we'll give it a couple minutes, Gabrielle, to make sure that we can make sure everybody comes in on time. Just the fashionably late people, oftentimes like me, will stroll in 5 minutes late. So we'll include those as well.
Awesome. Yay, welcome everyone. I can't see the chat, but if you can see it, feel free to write where you're calling from or how you're doing today. I'm excited for the session.
Yeah, we're calling. The SOI team is calling from Gatineau right now. And Gabrielle, where are you? Sorry.
I'm in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah. Born and raised in Toronto, though, if there's any Torontonians in the house.
Yeah. I'm sure that we'll have one or two. That's seems it's the biggest place we have in here in Canada.
You're not a rare bunch, that's for sure.
Guaranteed not. And I'm born and raised in Springdale, Newfoundland. So it's I don't know if we'll have anybody from Springdale, but it might be enough.
True. That's awesome.
Oh, we got Kirsten. Kirsten. Hi, Gabrielle. Kingston, just down the highway from Toronto. Exclamation. Happy face.
Hey, Kirsten.
And Karam is calling from Whitby, part of the Iceland. And we got Marab calling from Toronto. So there you go. You nailed
it. Hey, everyone. Wow, the Ontario cohort coming in strong.
All right. So I think it might be, I'd say we can get started right now. So we are excited to welcome Gabrielle Foss, the SOI alum from the Arctic 2015 expedition. Gabrielle is a designer, a facilitator, and an adventurer whose work explores how experiences shape our growth as individuals and leaders. Gabrielle began her career working to align business with environmental sustainability and social impact. Her curiosity about the people behind the projects led her into leadership development as an exclusive director from Cansbridge Fellowship. And today she designs life skills program at Prequel, helping students learn about teamwork, communication through creativity and hands-on work. So Gabrielle, it's all you.
Thanks so much, Scott. Let's see if we can get my slides to show up. Oh my goodness, this is an awesome platform. Okay, thank you so much, my behind the scenes producer. So hey everyone, welcome to this session on the value of adventure. I had to kind of pinch myself this morning because I got to speak about what is probably my favorite topic in the world to one of my favorite communities in the world. It's been like now 10 years since my own Arctic expedition, but I think so fondly of the SOI community. And I was so excited when the summit, I got an invitation email to the summit in my inbox a few months ago, because I've been looking for opportunities to reconnect with the network. So this is so awesome. All right, so when I learned about the summit, I heard that one of the themes for this year's gathering is finding your path. And obviously that's both career-wise and personally. And I have a very strong belief that adventure helps us do both those things, both figuratively and literally. So I've created my presentation to be surrounding the theme of adventure as a catalyst for personal growth and finding your path. I've got two warm-up questions for us here. I believe you guys should be able to type your answer in the chat, just like you did with where you're calling in from. And then hopefully we can have Mac, our lovely producer, show some on the screen. But I'd love to hear, first of all, what was your last adventure? And B, how did it change you? And you'll notice that throughout this presentation, how I refer to adventure is a whole spectrum, from the micro adventures in your life, trying out a new type of food for dinner after work, to the bigger adventures like your SOI expedition. And how did it change you? So what kind of impact did it have on you personally or professionally, depending on what you choose? So I'll give you guys a few seconds to think, and hopefully we can get a few shared up on the screen. This is when I need to play the Jeopardy music or something. Oh, do we have a brave soul ready to share? Mac, I don't know. Let me know if there's anyone sharing in the chat. Oh, yes. Craig says he went on a family trip to Cape Breton. That's awesome. Curious how it changed you, Craig, but I can maybe extrapolate that it hopefully allowed you to be a little closer to your family and have a really cool shared experience with them. Personally, my last adventure is also family related. My mom just moved out to Vancouver, which is where I've now made a home with my partner, and we went on a hike, and it's a hike I've done many times before, but being able to do it with her was such a cool experience and helped us kind of both find this path of this new life together out west, and different kind of memories we can create together. So it's like novel in that way. Okay, let's see. Yeah, strength and family connection. Love it. Okay, let's see if we can get one more person to share. Oh, Tara says a big hike in the Rockies. Awesome. So cool. I'm curious if we also will have how it changed you, but I'm sure there's, with a big hike anywhere, I'm sure it came with its fair share of highs and lows and bringing you closer to the people that you're with, showing you what you're made of, hopefully building some confidence. Cecile says she dragged her partner to a Samhain celebration, Celtic Halloween. Very cool. Yeah, I love there can be cultural adventures that you go on and get exposed to new traditions, ways of celebrating, ways of connecting. Okay, let's see if we can get one more. I'm just so obsessed with these answers. Okay, Karam says, I was part of the Iceland expedition 2025 over the summer. It changed me by exposing me to more place-based learning and Indigenous knowledge sharing, which is so important in policy decision making. That's fabulous, Karam. Thank you. Yeah, that was the big impact that I'd say my own expedition in 2015, to the Arctic had on me was at the time I was so interested in science and thinking about climate change from an environmental perspective, and the way that I came out of that expedition transformed and kind of with my path altered was same thing, like being exposed to different ways of knowing and specifically learning about mental health in the North and having that spark an interest and a desire to contribute and to kind of shape a bit of my career around it for a few years there. So awesome. Thanks guys for sharing. That's fabulous. Hopefully we're warmed up now. And I hope too that it's now clear that adventure, both small and large, does have an impact on us. And so today we're going to talk about what adventure really is, what makes an adventure. Number two, why is it so important for our growth and our process of finding our paths? And then three, how to make it a regular part of our lives. So what is adventure? I have to Google it because obviously I feel like I feel what an adventure is and I can describe it on the day-to-day, but what's the real definition? I've never quite really looked it up. So according to this online dictionary, an adventure is an unusual, exciting, and possibly dangerous activity, such as a trip or experience, or the excitement produced by it. So I really want to focus on these three words here because I think these are all really important components of adventure. So adventures, by definition now, are unusual. So there's an element of novelty. They're exciting, which is both a feeling and a physiological state, as we will discuss very soon. And number three, there's an element of risk. So it makes it a little more exciting in that regard. So here's my thesis that I hope to convince you all of today. I hold this belief that adventure is the most powerful catalyst for personal and or professional growth because of these three elements. So novelty, excitement, and risk. And we're going to dive into all of those shortly. So Scott kind of already very kindly went over my bio, which is awesome. But just in terms of, or before we start the kind of meat of the session, I wanted to properly introduce myself and my own winding path and maybe what's brought me to this thesis. So again, I joined the SOI family back in 2015 when I participated in the Arctic expedition. Inspired by that expedition and the friends made through the SOI community, a number of us at the time started an initiative called North in Focus, where we facilitated mental health workshops in Kangersutuaq and Nunavik and in Nain and in Nunavut. A few years later, graduated with a business degree, worked in consulting for a few years, and then served as Scott mentioned, the executive director of a youth leadership and entrepreneurship nonprofit that also was travel and adventure centric. So this is really what kind of got me consolidating the reflections from my SOI expedition all those years prior and starting to realize that there's real like science and mental models behind why experiences like that are so effective in transforming people and helping them shape their path. And so recently, kind of my own path has taken me deeper into this world of life skills and leadership programming as a program designer, facilitator, and now consultant in this area. So again, my own expedition was such a major catalyst for growth, and it has been an inspiration to live a life packed with adventure since then. So that's exactly why we're going to be nerding out about this in the next 40 or so minutes. So number one ingredient in our adventure recipe is novelty. So let's talk about novelty and how this helps us grow. You'll notice that audience participation is a bit of a theme here. So do your best to work the chat, and hopefully it won't be too awkward when I'm waiting for it to show up on the screen. So let's go back for a moment in time here. Let's all pretend that it's the day before your Students on Ice expedition. Does anyone want to share in the chat how you felt and what you were expecting? And now I wait. And we'll see if we get some contributions on the screen. You're departing from Toronto or Whitby or Kingston, and you're waiting for the train to Ottawa to then catch a flight, or however you got to the beginning of your expedition. What's going through your head? Maybe I can share mine in the meantime. I felt excited, but also nervous. Okay, here we go. Tracy said it best. Excited, ready to meet youth from around the world. That is awesome. Yeah, I felt that too. Coupled with some nerves. I had no idea what to expect since I'd honestly never experienced anything like this expedition before. But it's certainly changed me in ways that I also could have never expected. And I think that element of novelty, you don't know what to expect, also is going to change you in ways that you can't even comprehend before you've gone into it. Justin says, oh dang, I was really unsure about what to expect. Nervous, especially about getting seasick. True. I went and bought those bracelets with the little pressure point over here, hoping that would work. Yeah, so seeing some themes. There's excitement, there's nervousness. It's good stress. In university, we talked a lot about the difference between eustress and distress. Eustress being a positive kind of stress, and then distress being a negative kind of stress. And so I'm hearing a little bit of both, mostly positive nerves though, and positive excitement. So I guess since then, since that moment, there's been one mental model that I've loved that has kind of helped me wrap my head around this process of uncertainty around the departure for an adventure, transformation that happens on the adventure, and then consolidation of those learnings and kind of new perspectives that happen upon return from the adventure. And that mental model is the hero's journey. Put in the chat if you recognize this mental model and maybe share where you might recognize it from. I'm going to spoil it in 10 seconds regardless. So we'll see if anyone beats me to it. But basically, many of us should recognize this from grade 10 English class, where you learn about different templates for storytelling, and you learn about the hero's journey as probably the most common, popular, powerful storytelling template that's been replicated amongst literature from so many different cultures and time periods, and it's still one that storytellers use today when they're kind of crafting their epics. And I think it's just so cool to come back to this mental model, yeah, Eric totally says we went on our own little Homeric or heroic journey. And exactly, like I didn't realize that this mental model or this storytelling template would be so applicable to our actual lives until my SOI journey, and realizing that it maps perfectly onto this process. Like I thought it was only kind of this antiquated model that we used and got tested on in grade 10, but it's actually so helpful to understand the process that we undergo when we're trying something new and venturing into the unknown. It turns out that this like study of hero myth narratives can be traced back to the 1800s. So it's like a pretty tried and true mental model for the power of adventure. And just to kind of like copy paste our own experience onto this, for all of us who were so lucky to go on expedition with SOI, the day before your departure was basically this point in your hero's journey. It was right before you crossed into the threshold, into the unknown. Then when you're on your expedition, you have the support of not only your fellow students and expeditioners, but also your educators and mentors. And I think that's probably the thing that struck me the most about my own SOI experience, was just how like saturated the experiences in mentorship from so many different angles. Like I had never been in a space before where I could have dinner with someone who's a botanist and then turn around and speak to a famous musician and then turn around and speak to I don't know, someone that's like kite skied to the Arctic Pole or the North Pole. And so I just thought it was so incredible. And I think that's like a very key part of the hero's journey, is meeting your mentors and your educators along the way. Then we kind of all had some sort of a mission or a challenge that we had to complete in this unknown world. So someone already mentioned seasickness and being nervous about that and having to battle seasickness. That's definitely one of the challenges that I think we all maybe experienced, but you definitely had other goals while being on the ship, such as building a community amongst students, learning as much as possible about the polar regions, and kind of seeing what it would do to your own path and how it would impact it. And so at the end, this process of venturing into the unknown, meeting your mentors, being challenged in this way, according to this tried and true model, will yield some sort of transformation that turns the adventurer into the hero of their own journey. So when you're thinking about your own path, I'd basically encourage everyone to embrace adventures that are unique and novel to enable this kind of transformation. And this, was shown by the hero's journey to be something that's quite potent in enabling you to find your own path, either personal or professional. So there might be a hike that you do every summer that's become familiar and comfortable, and if it is so familiar to you, it might not yield a transformative experience every time you go out. But for someone that's never done that hike before, it might be so perspective shifting and confidence building after doing it for the first time. And that's kind of due to that element of novelty that's so powerful in our adventures. Again, like our journeys into the unknown can look so many different ways. They could be a walk in a foreign wood. They can be learning a new skill. They can be entering a new social scenario, taking on a new educational adventure. And so in your life, in your career, think about which hero's journey resonates for you and how you want to grow. All right, number 2, excitement. So let's talk about excitement, which I think is the second kind of key ingredient in any good adventure. We're going to explore why it's necessary for our growth, and then share another little nerdy model with you all. So again, I'll kind of go through another scenario. And then I'd love you all to answer a few of these questions in the chat. So imagine you're hiking on Devon Island in Nunavut with your expedition mates. You overhear on the radio that a polar bear is approaching the island. You hop in the Zodiac that's going to chase it off, of course, because you want to be part of the action. What are you thinking? Like, how are you feeling? Like, really try to tune into your body. Like, what does this excitement feel like in your bones? And I'll give you guys a few minutes to think, a few minutes to share. By minutes, I mean seconds. And then we can talk a bit about what this all means. This is a real scenario, by the way, from my own expedition. That is the one that stands out in my mind probably like amongst so many different cool memories, like this is one of the coolest. It was, yeah, we were literally like looking at one of the glaciers on Devon Island, and then I overhear on the radio someone's like, "There's a polar bear approaching," and then I can't remember, one of these like super cool educators. I got to hop in the boat with them and a few other students, and we like were revving the engine to try to chase the polar bear like away and change its course, change its path away from our students. So it was crazy. My heart was beating so fast. And I was thinking that although we were safe, this is probably the closest to danger that I've been. Okay, who wants to share? Justin, thinking, where am I buying nose or camera? Yeah, for sure. Feeling excited to witness such a rare opportunity for a Southerner. Totally. Yeah, I know you want to like capture it, you want to hang on to it, but you're also like excited. Like, and what does excitement feel like? Probably your heart's beating. Maybe your vision kind of you get a little tunnel vision towards the source of the threat. You want to have your eyes on that polar bear at any given moment. Yeah, maybe your like face is flushed, like there's blood kind of rushing to your extremities. It's trying to get you ready for action. Okay, cool. We'll see if anyone else wants to share. If not, we'll keep going. Kirsten says, hoping we can keep everyone safe, including the polar bear. Great point. Also, my scientist brain would take over and secretly think this is awesome. Exactly. And that's the point of, we'll talk more about like the balance between like excitement and risk and like the value of adventure. But there is such a sweet spot where something is like exciting and there's an element of like spook, but no one's actually like the polar bear is not in danger. You're not in danger. And so you can just kind of like settle into that feeling of how awesome it is. Okay, nerd time. So let's now introduce our next mental model for why excitement and its impacts on the brain and the body have been, or why I think they're so beneficial for your growth and your process of finding your path. So I'm sure many folks here have heard of fight or flight. So that your fight or flight response is when you have a physiological reaction that occurs when there's some sort of perceived threat, and that triggers the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and basically prepares your body to either confront the danger, which is fighting, or escape it, which is fleeing or escaping from the danger. So flight. So now let's add another few layers of understanding to this phenomenon, and specifically what happens before you go into fight or flight, or after. And this is like specifically the model that I've been obsessed with for the last couple of years. So this illustration here on the slide depicts something called polyvagal theory. So this shows how your autonomic, so when you hear autonomic, think automatic, nervous system regulates our responses to safety and threat through 3 different states. So it shows that when your system is in this first state, the green zone, or it says social engagement here, when it's in this state, it's regulated and feeling safe, and we exist in this happy little green zone where we can engage socially, we can feel joy, we can feel curiosity, and we can feel present. This is a pretty awesome place to be. So this is our first kind of mode that your nervous system can be in, according to polyvagal theory. So this is kind of the mode that like you would be in when you're happily hiking around on Devon Island with your new friends, and you're curious, and you're turning over rocks, and you're listening to some awesome geologist speak about the area, and you're just feeling super stoked about life. And then something happens, and you get a little sense of excitement or arousal, as it says on the graph here. And this moves you into this red, what's called sympathetic system, which has the purpose of preparing you for action. And so note again that like excitement can be a sign of something good, like nerves before the expedition, or nerves before a big job interview, or they can be signs of something bad and scary and dangerous, like a polar bear chasing you. But your nervous system really processes these moments in the same way. So in small amounts, this like adrenaline can help you perform and activate when you need to the most, and really show up for that job interview, or show up for a big race that you're about to run. But we'll talk in a second about when it kind of can be not so good. So this is the moment in your nervous system graph where you get the call about the polar bear coming close, and you move from a place of green, happy, zenned out mode to a place of activation and ready to act mode. And so the cool thing about your system is that as long as you're able to unwind and relax after that perceived threat, whether it's the big interview, the polar bear encounter, like as long as you're able to relax or come back to safety after that encounter or that bit of activation, it's all good. You're kind of just left with a good story, an overall positive experience of excitement and adventure, and you come back down into happy green mode. And that's a totally healthy kind of process to go through, because again, like stress and excitement can be eustress, good stress. However, if the polar bear keeps getting closer and you have no opportunity to kind of fight or flee it, or you've got, maybe to use the career example, maybe you've got like back to back interviews and you have no opportunity to relax in between, you'll just keep edging closer towards that fight or flight threshold, and your body can't come back down. And so at that point, in order to keep yourself safe, it's going to either want to fight the source of the threat, or it's going to want to escape. But if you can't do either of those things, then you'll revert to this third F word, which is freeze. And so in a last ditch attempt to kind of keep your body safe, it's gonna shut down. So at this point, it takes more time and intentionality to bring your body back down into that green zone to recover from the overwhelm of excitement that you kind of got in that scenario. This like obviously is no fun, but it's especially dangerous if that shutdown happens in a really important moment, like when you're about to land the job of your dreams and suddenly you freeze in your interview because maybe you've just been so overwhelmed throughout that whole process of prepping that you were already at that threshold before you even got in the room, and suddenly like being in the room just kind of pushed you over into freeze mode. Or of course, like there's the scenario of if you're actually trying to escape something life-threatening, then freezing instead of being able to get yourself out of that scenario can be catastrophic. And so obviously there's a whole range of scenarios that this graph could apply to, from harmless but still sucks, like the job interview scenario, or quite potentially harmful. But regardless, I think it's a really interesting way to conceptualize how our brains and bodies work together with this goal of keeping us safe, but how if we don't give ourselves a chance to come back down to the green after we're stressed or challenged in some ways, that it actually can really harm us over time. So I bring up this graph, this polyvagal theory, because it's honestly been the most life-changing mental model for me personally as I've been carving my own path the last number of years, both again personally and professionally. I mentioned that I moved from Toronto to Vancouver a few years ago, and at the time I was honestly so enamored by all the opportunities to do adventure-based activities like hike mountains and backcountry ski and climb and mountain bike, and I loved how powerful these sports made me feel and how they taught me to analyze and communicate through high-stakes moments. And like, I loved how this confidence transferred to other areas of my life and work. Like, I remember coming to work on a Monday morning, having just done a really awesome like ski tour, and just having a little extra pep in my step, and suddenly little like work emails that previously might have bothered me didn't anymore, because felt like I had the perspective of this adventure. Like, if I can kind of get through that scenario and that adventure, then like work is no problem. And I love that. However, I also started to experience moments of suddenly going too far outside my comfort zone. Like when you go like flip over the bars on your mountain bike for the first time, or you go on a scary icy like ridge top and you're skiing. And I noticed that I had a few of these moments that really made me like enter that freeze mode and shut down, disconnect from my group, and kind of made me like question why I do these things at all. And so being introduced by a therapist to this illustration for the nervous system existing in either the green zone, red zone, or blue zone, especially when I kind of mapped that graph onto my own adventure experiences, it gave me the awareness to know where my psychological and physiological limits are and how to then play or adventure within them. And that concept of having like a limit to how much you can challenge yourself was so new to me, because I always thought that more is better. And when you're carving your path, you just kind of got to throw yourself at everything that's new and exciting and challenging, and your progress or growth will happen in a rather linear way. And this graph was the first thing that kind of illustrated to me that that's not the case. And you actually really do have to kind of respect those limits for yourself, and how those limits can be really different from person to person. Like my threshold for fight or flight is a lot lower than a lot of my friends, and that's okay. And I've found some really happy adventures once I realized that. So in closing for this kind of section, I think adventure as a means to teach us how excitement, both good and bad, lives in our body is yet another reason why I think it's the most powerful catalyst for personal and professional growth. And now we're going to chat about the third and final reason. So let's talk about that final ingredient, which is a healthy dose of risk. Okay, you guys know the drill, little audience participation here if you can. So I'm going to give you one last scenario, and then please let me know how you would feel in this scenario before dipping and after dipping. So the scenario is that you're standing on the shore of the Arctic Ocean with your expedition mates, and you're about to sprint into it for a cold dip. You've never swam in water this cold before, but you're up for the challenge. So how are you feeling before dipping, and then how do you feel after dipping? And again, this was a real epic moment on our 2015 Arctic expedition, so I can color it in with how maybe I felt in the moment in a second, unless someone beats me to it. Okay, maybe I'll say quickly that before, like when I heard that this was an opportunity that we could jump in the water during our Arctic expedition, I was terrified. I had never been in water this cold before, and I like traditionally when I tried to do my like lifeguarding courses back in the day, I always would be the person, like everyone else is like really like strongly swimming and doing all their drills and stuff, and I'd be like shivering in the corner because I just couldn't handle the cold. And so I was so terrified before this cold dip. But then afterwards, like I found that I felt so awesome. Like again, the confidence building from having gone into the unknown, done something a little like potentially dangerous. Like obviously going into cold water isn't void of risk. It can kind of send you into shock if you're not careful. But obviously we had such amazing support from the expedition crew that kept us kind of really warm before and after, hot tea, hot soup after. Like we were able to recover from the cold dip so quickly, and then just have it be like such an empowering experience. Eric says he's a bit reluctant, so being on the Arctic swim team was a sell, and I brought goggles. That's awesome. So another dimension to the adventure. Ooh, okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, like the dimension that's added there is a bit of like an identity shift maybe that happens from being part of this like coveted swim team. I think that's like a really cool element of adventure as well, is the a bit of the like comfort in a new identity that comes from being someone that cold dips, or someone that goes on cool hikes in the Rockies, or cool road trips from time to time. Okay, that's cool. Kirsten says, oh, I love cold water, so I think I'd be cannonballing in. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. On my expedition, I begged Anna to let us jump in the cold waters of Labrador, and she thankfully caved and let us dive in. Best day ever. That's so awesome, Kirsten. I love it. That's so cool that like when you have an expedition like SOI, and there's such a diverse range of people and a diverse range of how they experience an adventure like this, like cold water is totally within Kirsten's comfort zone. And so maybe you're not going to go through like some massive transformation by jumping in the water, Kirsten, but maybe by encouraging people around you that are on the ship to do so that maybe haven't before, you might kind of be sparking these really transformative moments for them, where they are able to come out of that experience and like pat themselves on the back and say like, cool, like I jumped in the Arctic Ocean. What else can I do with my life? You know, like, so I think that's really a cool proof of concept of why it's cool to mix and match so many different characters with so many different experiences on something like the SOI ship. Mac was before nervous and excited, pumped up, totally. And after like Wim Hof has nothing on me, I know, right? Then you're like, okay, like what else can I do? I'm so powerful. Okay, that's awesome. So here on the screen is my final nerdy model of the day to illustrate this relationship between risk and personal growth. So this one's called the Yerkes-Dodson law, and I'm going to kind of walk through it, and it'll make sense hopefully in a few seconds. So let's bring our attention to these axes. On the x-axis, we have the level of stress that would be brought on by some sort of exposure to risk, such as cold water. Then on the y, you have performance, which could be, again, like personal, professional, or both. And you could also kind of mentally replace the word performance with growth and think about it that way. And so this model shows that when we increase stress or exposure to risk, performance, or the amount that you're kind of growing as a person, increases as you move out of this state of boredom to one of engagement and eventually into one where you're perfectly challenged and out of your comfort zone. This is called the growth and learning zone. So if you've ever gone on a hike and the weather's really bad and your tent flooded and your food got eaten by a squirrel, but at the end of the day, it kind of just brought you closer to your friends. No one got hurt and you had a great story to tell. That's a case of being in the growth and learning zone, where then you come out of it hopefully having learned to check the weather before you go, learned that you need a better tent, and learned how to hang your food. But other than that, it was maybe a little stressful and uncomfortable, but ultimately a harmless, even potentially fun in hindsight experience. And so maybe doing the cold dip on your SOI expedition is a good example of this too, where maybe it was uncomfortable in the moment, but then you learned, again, how much stress or cold you can actually handle. And yeah, that Wim Hof has nothing on you. The other thing to highlight, I guess, here is that there is a downside to this, of course. So what would happen if you had to camp another night in a soaking wet tent with no food? Or what would happen if you had to stay in the cold water of the Arctic Ocean for longer than what you're able to handle? Then it would start to push you kind of on the other side of this to the distress zone, out of your growth and learning zone into the distress zone, which is a really not fun place to be. That's a place of potential for panic, shutdown, and you really don't want to be there. And so when I think about what kinds of adventures I want to design for myself and which ones have the most potential to be catalytic of personal professional growth and confidence building and transformation, I think about kind of the Goldilocks story. There's a little bit too much, and then there's just right. And so that applies to risk as well. If you have not enough risk, or excitement or novelty, this really applies to everything we just talked about. If there's not enough, then it's just boring. But if it's too much, then it's terrifying, and you go into a freeze or shutdown mode, both emotionally and physiologically in a way that you cannot control. However, if you kind of just have all of these things in this perfect ratio, then it'll put you in this magical growth and learning zone, and that's where transformation happens in your hero's journey. That's where you come out with a really great story and some new perspective on what you can do. And so I think risk in outdoor adventures is more obvious what that looks like. But this could relate to so many other personal and professional experiences. Maybe you want to learn a new language. If you're just kind of doing Duolingo in private for 10 years, you might learn some great vocab, but you might not be totally fluent. But if you decide to kind of risk a bit of embarrassment and show up to an in-person conversation club, maybe before you think you're actually ready to kind of go out and try your language out in the real world, I can almost guarantee you'll learn more from talking to real people and moving past that fear of failure or embarrassment if you're able to go and do that. So again, this risk thing, it's obvious for outdoors, not so obvious for other experiences of growth, but I think it's applicable all the same. And so now what? Like, what do we do with all these mental models and all this information? For a few minutes here, or maybe I'll walk you through this activity, and then maybe you can do it on your own time, and we'll just do 10 minutes of maybe Q&A instead. Do I want to do that? Okay, let me walk you through the activity, and then maybe we'll see if people want to just come up with some answers on the spot and or give questions. I was going to have us take a bit of time to do something a little more interactive. I have a little like adventure planning template to share with everyone. And again, maybe you can look at it now, see if it sparks any thoughts that you want to share, or else take it away and fill it out on your own time. So I'd love to like hear about people's dream adventures and the impact they wanted to have on themselves. So I made a little template. I'll send it to Mac, and then hopefully he can share it in the chat. And I hope this is a cool little tool to help everyone reflect on what we talked about today. So it basically has these prompt questions of what is your dream adventure? Like, what would you do? Where would it be? Who would be there with you, if anyone? When will you do it, and why are you doing it? The why you're doing it is the most important part, because again, if we're using adventure as a catalyst for growth, having that idea of why you're entering into an experience will be so helpful to be able to like check in with that intention, beginning, middle, and end of that experience, and see how you're tracking, and if you need to shift anything about it, the way it's designed, to be able to put you more in the kind of growth and learning zone that you want to be in. And then at the bottom here, there's like a little check-in about the 3 elements of adventure that we talked about today. So is it novel? Or if so, like how will it be novel? How will it be exciting? And how will you add the right level of risk? So again, we're not adding so much risk or danger that it's going to like put you into panic, but how do you add just the right secret sauce amount of risk that makes it worth remembering? On this note, one other SOI learning that's really stuck with me over the years, I think it was James Raffin shared the like M&Ms and the F and F. Like M&M is like miserable is memorable. So like that kind of encapsulates this idea of risk, and how if things are a little risky, a little miserable, it definitely makes for a good story. And then on the flip side of that, F and F means that fine is forgettable. And that's also kind of shown by our Yerkes-Dodson model, that if it's like nothing stimulating happens, you're just going to be in a zone of boredom, and nothing will be memorable or transformative about your adventure. So I hope this little template is helpful. People can access the link. Hopefully it's in the chat now. You should be able to click it and then just click copy to make your own version of it. You can also take a screenshot of this slide if you want, or just like hopefully after this presentation, take a second to think about your adventures and how you might want to use them to shape your path moving forward. I'll share mine really quick. This is what I would have written if I had made this template a year ago. I went on a really fun adventure last year with my partner. We wanted to go on a big bikepacking trip, so we ended up dreaming up this like South Island of New Zealand bikepacking trip. This was last November, so like a year ago today we were leaving, and we wanted to do it together to really like build up our relationship and our partnership, and put like kind of test our teamwork and our relationship under these like new, more challenging scenarios than what we encounter on the day-to-day, and hopefully make some epic memories along the way and have fun. I kind of had to reflect on these 3 buckets as we were planning it, because again, there's like a Goldilocks sweet spot with all of these things. Like on the novelty side, it was already a new country. I had never really bikepacked before. I had just bought a new bike. Like I literally had never even ridden it longer than an hour. And I had never done a trip this long before. And so there were so many elements of novelty, but I felt like I felt like it was just enough. On the excitement side of things, like we kind of roughed it mostly, like we're mostly camping and eating like our ramen. But then we kind of added in like some hostels along the way because we knew at one point we were going to be like wet and dirty and we would want to be able to bring our nervous systems back down into the green zone by having a hostel break and being able to do some laundry and collect ourselves for the next leg ahead of the journey. And then on the risk side, I like was already a bit uncomfortable about the idea of being like unsupported. Like we didn't have a car, we're just us and our bikes. And like I really had not known how to like change a tire and stuff before that. So I knew that that would already be a bit uncomfortable and a bit risky. And then there were other elements about the trip that I kind of designed to, or like maybe that went into our planning of the destination, is that I knew that like already there would be so many elements of novelty and things that would make me a bit activated, that I wanted to be in a place that had like drinkable water and a familiar language and like lots of food available along the route, because I knew that if we were doing all those things and it was all like new and a little bit scary, but we were also in a different part of the world where maybe those things weren't available, I just could already feel like it would be too much for me to be able to have fun and grow from, and I would probably just be more in the shutdown mode than the growth and happy learning and green zone modes that are kind of overlapping from all these different models. So that was my example. Hazel said, how long was the trip? It was like 3 weeks and like 1,100 kilometers with an Everest amount of up, which was more than I'd ever biked in my life, but it was so awesome. And now we're so motivated to do one again. And we actually got engaged on that trip too. So it definitely brought us closer together. Anyways, that was my example. Now I would love to hear in the next few minutes, we have like max 10 minutes. If anyone wants to either share like their dream adventure and the impact that they would like to have on them. Again, like no dream is too big or too small. Like this could be where you want to go next weekend, or what you want a new part of the city that you want to explore after work. Or it could be like a big lifelong dream trip. It doesn't even have to be feasible at this moment. Like I feel like dreaming really big is part of the process to eventually being able to make that happen for yourself. So feel free to either like share that in the chat or share any questions or any other thoughts that might have come up from the presentation. Thanks, Tammy. Cheers, guys. But yeah, this was so much fun to talk about all this with you guys. So we'll see if any questions come up or any dreams. And if not, then I'll end us off here. Maybe I'll say my closing remarks and then we'll see if anything comes up in the chat. So again, like thanks everyone for your attention. This was such a dream presentation to put together. Favorite topic, favorite organization, great combo. I'm so stoked on this topic, and I hope that maybe it sparks some sort of reflection of how you can inject a little more adventure into your day-to-day life, and hopefully how it'll help you shape your own path, whether it's personally or professionally, and how it'll help you do things like build confidence, learn how to build relationships and teamwork with the people that you're with, have greater awareness about your own nervous system, and both it's the magical things about it that try to keep you safe day to day, and also the limitations that it has in terms of how too much excitement, too much novelty, too much risk can really limit your adventures. So I hope this helps everyone like find that sweet spot for them of how they can like challenge themselves, stimulate themselves in all these different ways, but have it be something that is like safe and comfortable in a way that helps you do that for a very, very long time and keep growing and keep carving your path for many, many years. So again, thanks so much, everyone. The SOI was just like the most powerful learning and growth experience I've ever had in my whole life. And so it's such a pleasure to be spending more of my time thinking about how I can create more experiences like that for other people. Thanks SOI for keeping the magic alive with this summit, and hope to connect with many of you after today. If you're ever planning a new initiative or want to evolve some adventure-based program that's existing. Like, I would love to bounce ideas anytime. I put my email on the slide here, and I'd love to hear from you or chat with anyone from the community. So yeah, have a great rest of the summit and hope to be in touch. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I appreciate you sharing your session today.
Awesome. Anytime.
And thank you to all who came and who listened in. Our next session is at 4:30, and we have Finding Your Path with Berkeley Wilson. So I hope you all can join that one as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, we'll shut it down.